I just want to say to you, Minister, that when you set it up that I'm the one that's causing the urban-rural divide because I mentioned it, your argument is extraordinarily weak. The fact that I state the obvious, what's been going on in this House, is that the people who are living on farms, who are farming contractors like Matty McGrath, who are contractors on land and roads like the Healy Rays, who are other sorts of contractors like Deputy Collins, are having an argument with us on the basis that we don't understand what we're talking about. They keep referring to the fact that we've no idea what it's like. Deputy Fitzmaurice thinks that we've never gone down the country. And this is absolute, I think, coming from the way that this has been constructed. And that's what I'm accusing you of. Not of using the language of urban versus rural, but of constructing a bill that is causing people to argue with each other on a completely false basis. If you really wanted to deal, and I'll repeat, with the issue of hedgerows overgrowing, of danger on tertiary roads, because I understand it's tertiary roads, not the big major ones, but the smaller ones, not the ones where the stupid birds that were referred to yesterday live, but the smaller ones where the clever birds live. And if you really want to deal with the neglect and the problems that arise from the overgrowth of these issues, both in city and in country, then you would fund the local authorities to do it in a regulated way. I will repeat that local authority funding has been slashed and burned for the last 10 years, and they don't have the resources to carry out this sort of work, and they've been starved of the staff. You say it's nothing to do with your department, it's an entirely different department. Well, I don't think that's a good enough answer to my thesis, which is if you fund one department properly, this department would not have to carry through this slash and burn bill that's being proposed. You are in a cabinet. Surely we deserve some joined up thinking from a cabinet that runs a country.
Deputy Declan Brannock.
I want to say this as sensitively and as diplomatically as I can. There is an argument and a construct being put before us here that somehow the rural deputies are being set in conflict with the city deputies, and I want to utterly and totally reject that. And I want to do so on the basis of what's already been said, and despite the danger of repetition, I think it needs to be said again, that there has been the deregulation of local authorities' role in the maintenance of our local environment. Despite the introduction of the property tax, which was fiercely resisted, the facilities and staffing and objectivity of the local authorities to carry out the role they're supposed to do has been seriously undermined. And therefore, whether you're near Goleen or in Kilgarvan or in Ballyfermot or in Crumlin, you will witness overgrowth, neglect and problems with the way our environment is ignored by the local authorities, who are underfunded and understaffed. And Minister, I have to say that this bill does exactly what we don't need. It introduces risks to our environment, to our already endangered species. It introduces a divide between rural and urban Ireland on a very false and obscene basis, to be honest with you, and it does so without consulting with the people who have to live in these areas, the people who have to work in these areas, and indeed the scientists and the naturalists who understand what is happening with the environment. So I am appealing to you to scrap Section 7 and 8 and open up a public consultation on these issues, one that unites the country and unites all people in interest in having a society that funds the maintenance of the public spaces in a proper way. Now, I have to admire our rural deputies, who are very eloquent in the way they tell stories. I mean, Michael Healy-Rae would have you listening to his lovely Kerry sing-songy accent all night, talking about the woman who nearly lost her eye, and that is a dreadful story. But by the way, people in the city almost lose their eyes sometimes when they pass by hedgerows and trees that dangle and are not cut properly by the local authority. I have every sympathy for that woman, and I believe every word he said. But it is not just a particular problem in rural Ireland. Where there is neglect of our environment where we live, it happens also in the city. We regularly trip over paths and break bones. We regularly fall over tree stumps that are breaking up the concrete on our roads. I have every sympathy. But here's the problem. If we do not regulate how we deal with that environment, and one of the other eloquent stories I heard yesterday was told by Deputy O'Keefe when he described how they used to cut back the hedges and they used to bend back the trees that allowed them to grow in a certain way, so they were training them back and at the same time preserving the wildlife. And he called the method something in a beautiful Irish word, and I'd love to know more about that. Why do we not revert to that sort of maintenance of our environment instead of here you go, off you pop, slash and burn? It isn't good enough, and it doesn't represent what is needed in this tiny little island, which is already suffering the effects of climate change, which some people don't believe, and which is already suffering the effects of other aspects of degradation of the environment. And it should not be the farmers nor the city slickers that bear the cost. Instead, the Minister should scrap these sections and open up a proper scientific research and debate and public consultation about what needs to be done. And I believe that one of the conclusions will be fund the local authorities and control this properly. Most of you guys were councillors, as was I, as was Richard, as was Gino and other people. We know the difficulty that the local authorities have in putting their budget together. We know how many people come screaming at us, they're not cutting down the trees here, the trees are overgrown on the road, the kids are running into them. But there's ways around that, and the way around that is to put an alternative bill that says to the government, restore the local authority fund in full, because you slashed it to bits over the last decades. You need to restore it and restore the staff and end any embargo on recruitment, and begin to look at these issues in a sensible, controlled and regulated way, where it's not down to individuals. And my God, Deputy Collins, your neighbours shouldn't have to be out cutting the hedges every night of the week. Even though they might enjoy doing it or they might not enjoy doing it, they should not have to do that. That should be something that the local authorities do. And I want to challenge this idea that the minor roads are dangerous and all the time dangerous. My car gets scraped every night, the roads I come through in Ballyfermot, and I'm sure rented cars get scraped when they're going through Kilgarvan or anywhere else, or Connemara. But that's not the issue. Places are made dangerous because they're badly maintained. It is not that we set out deliberately to say, FUs in the country, all we care about is the birds and the bees. Of course we care about the people who inhabit the area. Of course we were one of the chief organisations to mount that protest over the harvesting of kelp in Bantry Bay. Our branch of People Before Profit in West Cork got stuck in there and helped to organise that, because we care about the environment and the relationship that people in this country have with the environment. The Minister and her department clearly don't. And whatever is in your heads while you are passing this bill to placate some element of Irish society, instead of treating the environment as a precious gift that belongs to all of us, and that we have to research, and that we have to look at scientifically, and that we have to look at moderately, and that we have to discuss together, instead of dividing us between them over there and us over here as if we had a problem, we should be working together on the one theme, and that is heritage. Minister, you are the Minister for Heritage, and I think tonight you have an opportunity to behave like one and support these amendments.
Deputy Jones.